Hey there, it's Tracy Daviero back with you for the Ridiculously Good VA Show video edition, which is our VA interview series. And today we're going to be talking about processes, procedures, all the important things that you need to have in place for your business to run well and for you to help your clients run their business as well too. And so I'm talking today with Jacki Hollywood Brown, who is a professional organizer by in her previous life, I guess. And really excited to have her here. She is a virtual assistant for several years now. She'll tell you a little bit more about herself and what she focuses on helping her clients with. And I hope you get lots of super good information out of what Jacki has to share. So thank you so much for being here with me today, Jacki. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Tracy. It's an absolute pleasure to be speaking to you today.
It's awesome. So I love doing these. Well, I mean, I say I love doing these interviews. I've already done one, but I love interviewing VAs that I know are doing such an amazing job in their business and who are really helping their clients. And so I'm really excited to speak with you because I love what you do for your clients, and I love to be able to tell business owners how important the kinds of services that you are offering to them are to their business. And so got a couple different questions for you today. So just an easy one right off the bat. What made you decide to start a virtual assistant business?
Oh, we're a military family. My husband recently retired, but we've lived in 5 different provinces, 3 different countries. I came to the VA world a bit late. I started out running my own business as a professional organizer, but with all of the moves and like long distance move every time we moved, I couldn't keep up with the business and finding new clients. And I had some part-time contract jobs here and there. And I was in one job, actually working for Kellogg's, and I loved it. I loved what I was doing there. I set up their records management program based on the international standards, and I just loved it. But one of the things that I found out when I was working there with various types of software apps, that I knew how to do stuff and people who were in industry didn't. And I was like, whoa, like I thought I would be the one, because I wasn't in industry, in all these admin offices, that didn't know how to use it, but I did. And so when I came out of that job, I thought, well, people really do need this service.
Yeah,
And
I think that
so
that's one thing that a lot of VAs start out thinking. We all do, because what we do or what we should do is what comes naturally to us, right? Like the things we're best at. And I mean, I know that I did for a really long time. I just thought everybody knew how to do all the things that I knew how to do. So same thing with
exactly,
you. You
exactly.
just think, oh, well, I know how to do this. It's not that difficult, or it's not that difficult to figure out. Probably everybody here knows it because wow, they're way ahead of me, like you said. So when you make that little connection that you know stuff that other people don't know and they're paying you to do it, boom, there's a business idea, right?
Well,
So
exactly.
yeah.
And I mean, I'm Gen X.
Mhm.
So when I was working with some of the millennials, they were like, oh, how do you know how to do this with Excel? How do you know to do this with Word? And I'm like, really, I've been using it since it was invented.
Yeah, yeah. That's true.
So,
I think I have been too. And if I go back and look at the courses that I took, early on in my admin days, a lot of them were Excel related for sure. And I
yeah,
loved them because you could do stuff with the information, right? It was just, that's the way my brain works. I love it. So yeah.
exactly, exactly.
So what services then? So I didn't mean to stop you. I know. So you realized that you could offer services. And so how did that start, and how did that kind of evolve into what services you offer now?
A couple of people asked me, like a couple of colleagues, saying, "Oh, I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with that." I'm like, "Oh, well, why don't you just do this or that? Like, oh, there's a formula in Excel. You can just do this, or well, just do this in Word, and look under these." And they're like, "Oh, just do it for me."
Yeah.
And so I did a few little things. I'm like, "Wait, I, I should be charging money for this." And then I had heard a colleague of a colleague was a virtual assistant. I'm like, and I followed her and ended up at the Canadian
Yeah.
Association of Virtual Assistants and you,
Yeah.
and here I am.
It's like, and we all kind of get there. It's like, oh, that's what I do. Right. That for me,
Exactly.
that's the way it was, because there was a lot of figuring out. I did the same thing. I left a job, and I just knew that, I knew that I could offer these services and people could pay me, but it was so disjointed that, I'm like, I don't know what you call that. So we were consultants back in the day, right? We're probably consultants still, but to know that you fit into something, you find the industry and you're like, oh, well, that's what it's called. And that's what I am. It just makes things a whole lot clearer for you when you're trying to describe it to people and trying to sort of set a business up and that kind of thing too, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so I know you've talked, we've worked together, so I know a little bit about your business. I know that you do a lot with procedures and processes and all that kind of thing. What would you tell virtual assistants about the importance of these things in their own business, as well as, I mean, we sort of always focus on our clients and say this is really important for them to do, and we know that. And if you have some insight there, that'd be great. But also for our own businesses as VAs, because we tend to not treat ourselves as well, probably as we treat our clients. But just talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that if you don't mind.
Well, exactly. Like I say to myself, I'm hiring myself as a virtual assistant to run my business.
Mhm.
And what would that virtual assistant do?
Yeah.
And just recently, actually, before just before Christmas, I spent an evening in the emergency room at the local hospital for a symptoms of a heart attack.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and I was, it turns out the doctor there diagnosed me with menopause.
Oh, well, that's like the rest of your life heart attack.
Exactly, exactly. But he's like, no, that the heart flutters, the shakiness is, he's like,
Yeah.
you'll go through that. He said, but he was really nice. He's like, I'm glad you came in because we want people to come in if they have these symptoms because
Oh, for
you don't
sure.
know the difference. So
Yeah.
I was very glad I went in. But as
I'm
I'm
glad he
sitting there,
did. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. As I'm sitting there in the ER, because I had my phone and I was like going, oh my God. Of course, then you go into panic attack, which, makes your
Yeah, makes it
symptoms even
worse.
worse.
Yeah.
And I'm going, oh my God, what if I have to turn over? Like, who's going to do the work if I can't do the work?
Hmm.
Like, certainly my husband, I keep him in the loop. He could message my clients and say,
Sure. Yeah.
she's unavailable, but, my clients still need the work done.
Yeah.
So how am I going to just even have a colleague? I mean, I'm in the virtual circle
Yeah.
group and so I've been chatting with people
Yeah.
offline saying, we've got to be able to cover each other's,
Yeah.
have each other's back, you
Hmm.
know. So I've got to develop a system now where, I can pull somebody in, they can do my work for
Yeah.
a couple of days or a week, and just to make sure that my clients have uninterrupted service. So I
Yeah.
think that's very essential for any virtual assistant is find a colleague
Yeah.
that you can, you know, have each other's back and, for example, do each other's work for a week.
Yeah. That's really good advice, because I think that we don't realize the importance of that. And whether it's medical, and you have to be off unexpectedly, expectedly, whatever. I remember making a big plan to be off when I was having hysterectomy, because I knew that I was not going to be able to work for, I didn't know, they said 6 weeks, they said 3 months, whatever. Even though we work in front of our computers, like if you're sleeping all the time, you're not responding to stuff, you're not, maybe your mind's not as sharp and that kind of thing. So planned or
Yeah.
not, I think it's important to have somebody who, like you say, can step in, but also to have the tools that they need in place to do it relatively easily, right?
Yeah. And even just to have another virtual assistant go through your procedure and make sure
Yeah.
they understand it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like they may, oh yes, I publish, I'm really familiar with MailChimp. It's
Hmm.
like, oh well, my client uses MailerLite.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so they get the idea of how to publish a newsletter, but they
Hmm.
don't know where the buttons are.
Yeah. And they
So,
don't know what the client sends, and they don't like, and those
and,
things
and
are all
where
so
that is.
particular. Like that's one
And
of the things that VAs ask me often is, what's the process to do this? What's the process to do that? Well, it honestly can be custom for everyone. If your client doesn't have a certain way of doing things, then you can bring them into your step-by-step process, and you can say, this is what you need to send me, and this is what I do with it and whatnot. But if they're, if they have a team, and I had this when I was working with my business coaches, they all had other people that worked with them, and so everything came in differently for somebody, so therefore every process was custom, right? And it was, we used this program, or we did these steps, or this is what their template looked like, and so everything ended up being just that, just that different. And I just had it all written down. And I sometimes, when I brought in subs, I was able to provide that to them. um when I've taken holidays, I've had somebody go in and do things like that. But I think it's really important to be able to document that sort of thing. And I know that that's something that, you do really, really well, but you also talk about it and you tell people why it's so important, all of these reasons and so many more, right?
exactly. And again, to keep proper records, because you want to show, if you've got a procedure for something,
Oops.
and you date that, okay, this is today's procedure. Well, if it changes next week, for example,
Hmm.
your client may change their newsletter template or their blog topics, or whatever, then
Hmm.
you don't rewrite
Yeah.
over the past procedure. You just update it, create a new one. Okay, so from this point we're using this one forward, but you have the one in the past that you can
Yeah.
keep to say, okay, that's the way we used to do things. Because
Right.
if the client says, oh, no, 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 we're changing, I was like, no, this date it's and this date is forward
Yeah.
and this date is backwards,
Hmm.
then you can kind of say, okay, here's the point where we changed, and confirm with them that that is indeed what they want done, and
This is
the
the
date
current one.
exactly.
Yeah, I had a summer from hell with a client once, and she was awesome. She was great. We were doing virtual events together. And so what was happening at the time, and of course this was a few years ago, but it's probably worse now because there are so many systems out there, was we were using GoToWebinar, which everybody used. Zoom, I don't think existed. If it did, nobody knew about it. GoToWebinar was the thing if you wanted to run the professional webinars and all that kind of thing. But what was coming into play was evergreen stuff where everybody wanted it to run automatically. And so all these new softwares were coming out, all these new platforms were coming out. And she wanted to change to, because GoToMeeting, nothing you use is perfect, but what she had was not perfect. And so let's use this one. I'm going to change to this one because it does, these bells and whistles, and this one does these bells and whistles. And we had, over the course of, I mean, easily it was a summer. It was not very long. It was a few months, maybe 4 or 5 months. We changed to 7. And so the
Oh
process changed
dear.
every time. So we would run one, and then it didn't do this and it didn't do this. But so, I mean, and talk about, process or procedures being different for everything that, each of these things, they did not all set up the same way. They weren't all simple, and they, there were different this, and it was crazy. And of course, at the end of all of this, we ended up back with what? GoToMeeting, right? Or GoToWebinar, because nothing did as much, nothing was as functional. I honestly think it wasn't until Zoom came along, until everybody started moving into that. And of course now Teams is another thing. But it's there are so many different things that we can use out there. And like you say, to be able to go back to what used to be, you need to document what that used to be, right? Because otherwise you're just doing the same work over and over and over again. So
Exactly, exactly. And the other thing is you can take, for example, MailerLite versus Mailchimp, they're two
mhm.
newsletter systems. If you have a client that's using Mailchimp and then they move to MailerLite, you've got that Mailchimp,
Yeah,
and you've got another client using Mailchimp. Well, you can take that and
that's right.
recreate,
Yeah.
create a new something for that new client. You don't have to,
Hmm.
go back to the drawing board.
No, that's right. Yeah.
You've got something done. You've got at least a basic template.
Hmm. No, that's for sure. And, and I just think, and, I, of course, because I teach VAs, I'm always stressing the importance of putting things together, or initially we called it doing your standard operating procedures and that kind of thing. And I know there's terminology for it. I think that sometimes, well, I know a lot of the times VAs fly by the seat of their pants, right? Because we focus on the paying work. We focus on the client. We focus on helping the client. We sort of think we don't really need to do all of this stuff for our own business, but we've just talked about a quick handful of incidents where there's lots of reasons to put that kind of stuff together for yourself and to focus on that kind of thing. And I think that it's easy to do it for clients. And it's we just jump into action for a client, don't we? We're like, if you needed to do something for me, boom, it's done. You need to do it for yourself, we put it off. We can't make decisions. We're not, all that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I think it's I think it's really important. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the mindsets a virtual assistant can
Yeah.
develop, is to separate themselves from their company.
Yeah. Well, you said it
Is
right off the
just,
top.
you know,
You're hiring yourself as a VA to run your company, right?
exactly. So
And
that
yeah,
that company is there. So if ever I do want to grow, or even, like, sell my
sell it.
business,
Yep. Yeah.
or bring somebody else on and have them gradually take over, I
Yep.
can't do that if
Yep.
everything runs out of my head,
Yeah, that's right. That's
or everything
really,
runs
that's a
off
writer downer,
everything.
guys. That's a really important one. Yeah.
Yeah, you cannot. There's a saying that I learned at one of my first jobs: if you can't be replaced, you can't be promoted.
Oh, interesting.
So
Yeah.
while we want to be really valuable,
Well, that's a better writer downer. If you can't be
be
replaced, you can't be
replaced, you can't be
promoted.
promoted.
Oh my gosh, I really like that. Okay.
Yeah, so that was one of my first manufacturing jobs that I learned that.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you do want to be valuable,
Yes.
but you want to be valuable and then level up.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So and even if I say, okay, I'm not going to sell my business, I can at least, give to my clients here. Like, if I decide, okay,
Yeah.
I'm retiring, we won the lottery, whatever, we're
Sure.
buying a house in Costa Rica, we're done. Um, I can give to my clients, like, here are all my
Yeah.
policies and procedures, and
Yeah.
here's, go find your next VA, or give these to an employee, and
Yeah.
they can, and imagine how much joy your
Yeah.
client will feel,
Yeah.
and how wonderful, like, you're just, you know, glowing
Yeah.
reviews.
Yeah.
How
And
do
I
you make
think
people
too,
feel?
yeah, and ourselves too, right? Because a big part of the VA sort of mindset or mentality is that if we're not helping somebody, then we don't feel like we're valued, right? So, and that's we like to hear feedback and that kind of thing, but that's something that we can do for ourselves. But yep, I did a really good job at that. So I really like that for sure.
Yeah, and there are. I mean, we're right now virtual assistants helping our clients grow their business.
Yeah.
Maybe they will hire employees.
Yeah.
And so if you can, sort of hand off
Yeah.
all your standard operating procedures, guess who's going to give you a whole bunch of referrals to their
That's
entrepreneurial
right.
friends?
Yep. That's right.
You know?
Yeah, and that's the thing is I think that, any of us, if I spend a good part of my days, I should say more, well, mornings, but when I network, I'm not just networking for myself, trying to get clients or whatever. I'm networking for the community that I'm in. So the VA community, the, business community, my local community, that kind of thing. And I love giving referrals. I absolutely love it. And people know that if somebody's asking about, I did this morning, somebody was asking, about where to go to get their snow tires done. I'm like, first, a little judgy. I'm like, oh, okay, it's a little late, but I always recommend the place that I go. And it happens to be a friend of mine, but we get excellent service there. And I start my days with that because that's the first place, I go in, I'm doing my little networking on social media. I think it's really important to be able to showcase other people. And I get lots of referrals sent my way. Some of them fit, some of them don't, because my business is not snow tires, right? My business is a little bit different. And but I get a lot of referrals from people, and I appreciate that all the time. And I always try to reciprocate in some way or another, right? By being able to pass along something about that person, or someone else, if there's not an opportunity to offer them as well. I think that that is the kind of thing that makes us feel good and makes us feel valuable to the community that we're networking in, and it comes back on you. It absolutely comes back. Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, you might say, somebody might contact you and say, "Oh, well, do you know anything about, I don't know, Asana or Trello or
yeah,
Dubsado?" It's like,
yeah,
no, but I know who does.
that's right.
Refer,
Yeah,
and then that person who does will remember you and say, "Okay, well, what do you
yeah,
do?" It
yeah.
What goes around comes around. So
It
spread
really
joy.
does. Yeah, it really does. And like I say, I think it's all just really an important thing to do in business, in life too, for sure. If somebody does something nice for me or well for me, why would I not want to share that information, right? So I think that if we treat our clients well and we do the best we can for them, they're going to be in a situation at some point where they're going to be able to refer us to. So that's awesome. So can you tell us of an instance? I had to write this one down because and it's not meant to be confusing, where you helped someone who was struggling with overwhelm, because I know we talk about that a lot, not just as VAs, but just you and I talk about it in general, because that is something that you help people out of. And so, can you talk about an instance where maybe that has happened before, or that happens regularly for you in your business?
I, I get a lot of clients with a massive amount of data,
Yeah.
information, and it's a lot of times it's stuck in spreadsheets. And for example, they have to clean up, a list of, they've contacts,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, I have to get this all into my CRM, but I can't import it because, I've got telephone numbers stored as text. I've got telephone numbers stored as, this. I've got none of the postal codes are right. It's like, you know what? Just give it to me. I'll
Yeah.
clean it up, take away the duplicates, format the postal codes, and boom, import it into your CRM. Done.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So simple. I had a client once who, she was an interior designer, and she was a lot. And she was so lovely. She had a big team of people. One of the things, imagine, and I always sort of pop everybody into their little squares. Creative people don't usually care about data. They care about the pretty stuff, right? And that's a massive generalization. I'm totally okay with making it, because I know this woman was like that. She was obsessed with her CRM. And it surprised me, because that was not, she was amazing at what she did, and she was very busy designer, did so much of this stuff. But one of the things that I helped her with was her CRM. And she was obsessed that I guess that it looked right all the time. Like first names, that they were all in there correctly, no initials, and if duplicate people and all that kind of stuff, like she scrutinized it all the time, and she had quite a large list, but this was her thing. She just needed to know that it was, and I think she probably did a lot of connecting with people and that kind of thing. Like she literally used it. I'm sure that's probably why, she needed to see that it looked the way it needed to look all the time. But it's so funny because so many clients just don't care, right? They're just like, I just need this, I just need that, as long as it's organized. So there are some people who are right there with us saying, okay, I need this, this, this. And some of them who are just, I don't know what to do with it. Tell me what to find, what I need. Another one of my clients could never find anything. Where do I find this one? It's right there, and there's no clearer way that I could have put it.
Yeah, and that's, a lot of what I do for clients is making sure like they can find their files. Like they'll
Yeah,
have 16 different names, but
yeah.
one file and it'll be saved in under 4 different names. It's the exact same thing. So
Hmm.
helping them get a standard naming convention,
I was gonna say, yeah,
some retention guidelines. Okay, once the final version's published, let's let go of the drafts.
yeah,
And then when the new version comes,
yeah.
the old one goes into an inactive file folder,
Right.
because they're like, oh, I can't lose this. This is important information for my
It's,
business.
but it
And
is, and that's
and that's it's
yeah,
a problem with entrepreneurs,
yeah,
myself included. I might need this someday. I
yeah,
spend a lot of time creating that. What if I lose it?
yeah.
And the digital world is a lot different, especially with all these cloud drives,
Yeah.
than having that, 4-drawer filing cabinet next to your
Right.
desk.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's talk about that. Actually, that's not one of the questions I had for you, but I know we've talked about that before. Can you give your insight on backups and cloud drives and that kind of thing? Because I know you,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I know you talk
Yeah.
about it, and I'm like, why didn't I put that in my question? So there it is. It's in there now.
Yeah. A backup is like a photograph of your system at any given period, and it's unchanged. And it's stored on an external hard drive
Mhm.
somewhere offline.
Right.
And uh, what cloud drives do is cloud drives sync. So if you make a change on your phone, if you make a change on your computer, if your virtual assistant or a colleague makes a change to that file, it's changed, and it can change anytime. So somebody could delete that file, and you might not know for a couple of months.
Right.
And your cloud drive, you can't go back to the backup because after 30 days it's gone.
Right. Yeah.
You can't go back to a previous version because it only stores so many previous versions for
Yeah.
so long.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got a backup system that is unchanged, you can go back into that backup system
Yeah.
and pull that file forward. And I don't know how many times I've actually had to do that with my own system.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of us think, I mean, and I have lost data for sure. I've lost data because what I thought I had was good enough, or nah, it was fine. If I lose stuff, I lose stuff. And I think I've lost data over the years that I've been working from home, probably 3 times, right? Um, not since the last time since I purchased a backup system was I've never lost anything since then. But I think it's really important that we recognize the difference between the two, because I think that I know for me, a lot of business owners, not just VAs, we just think, oh, well, if my computer crashes, then I need that. If I this, then that. And I think that when you talk about, the cloud stuff not being there and shared folders, if somebody deletes something, that you're not going to have it anymore. That actually happened to me with one of my clients. We shared a Dropbox, and I put all of the stuff that I was doing. She downloaded it to her computer, and then she deleted it out of the Dropbox just like that. I was like, where's my work? And so I literally had to set up a mirror folder that she did not have access to, so that I could make sure that
Yeah.
I still had access to the so we think about things being handy and there and secure and accessible, shareable or not, but you're right that it's not always that way, right? It doesn't always
Well, yeah, and
serve the
I
purpose.
just wrote a blog. Yeah, I just wrote a blog post last month. A few years ago, one of my clients, who was also a colleague, went to a conference, and she was taking her laptop. And I said, have you got? And she was running a Mac, and I said, have you got Time Machine backup installed? And she said, no. I said, I can't. I'm not letting you go unless you do.
Yeah.
She said, what do you mean? I said, no, you've got to set this up.
Yeah.
So I went to her house, got her set up. She ran Time Machine backup, went to the conference, worked on a file like that. Her conference presentation was on her way home. Her computer was stolen off the train.
Oh my gosh.
Now, fortunately, she had it set so that after 5 attempted logins, it erases everything.
Okay. Yeah.
And she's like, "Will that affect my cloud drive?" Well, this was actually it
That's
was before
it,
I
right?
well,
Yeah.
it was actually before iCloud was
Hmm.
it was, and I said, well, she was using Dropbox at the time. I said, it will
Yeah.
get rid of everything that was
Yeah.
on your computer.
Yeah.
So, hopefully it won't sync. But anyway, she got her new computer. She brought it over my place with her backup drive. We plugged it in 5 minutes. Five
Yeah.
minutes, she was up and running. The only file that she lost was her presentation that she had tweaked before she presented at the
Really,
conference.
really.
That was
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, if I hadn't backed it up, I would have lost I would have lost my business.
Well, that's the thing, right? And we don't realize it. And I think that's the point, is that, we it then we're in a panic. We're in a panic. So what is the point? in being in a panic. So I know, and that's not what we're here to talk about, but I know that I purchased Carbonite backup system, used
Mhm.
it for years, and that was really helpful. You also have a suggestion, which I think is a smart one. What do you suggest that people do with that kind of stuff to make sure that they're safe?
Um, if you're running a Mac, Time Machine backup,
Okay.
and Windows also has a backup
Hmm.
system. So you're backing up to an external hard drive,
Right.
and then which is on your desk.
Yeah.
And then I also suggest every month that you back up using something like Carbon Copy Cloner or Carbonite
Right. Yeah.
to an external hard drive, and then store that hard drive
Yeah.
at someone else's house, like your next door
Yeah.
neighbor.
Yeah.
My our daughter lives downtown. I just,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
every month get the disc
Yeah.
and back to
I
her
and
house.
I like I say, I think that everybody thinks, oh, I don't need that, until they do. And that's the
Yeah,
thing is
but
that,
it's yeah, and it's not just making sure you back up. Every once
yeah.
in a while, you got to test that backup,
Yeah, that's right too. Yeah.
because there's nothing worse than thinking you've got everything backed up, and then when something disaster does happen, you plug that backup back in, and
Yeah.
it's not
It's
accessible.
not there. Exactly. Oh my gosh. So
So
yeah.
yeah,
So but that, I think what I wanted to get to with that is that, it is important to set up our, to organize ourselves and to set up our processes, to set up those procedures, make sure that all that stuff is there, and then, do something with it, protect all of that information and all the way that we run our business, because I think that it's really valuable time that, in my opinion anyway, not enough people really spend doing unless they have a need for it, right? You're hiring subcontractors. Oh, I'm going to do it now. And we used to tell everybody, start, as you are beginning your business, start to write everything down, because you have the time now. Then you just need to update, right? You get a new client, you're using MailerLite all of a sudden. All you have to do is that process. You don't have to do all the other ones. You just do them as you do
exactly.
something. It makes it so easy. So yeah,
Yeah, and
it's awesome.
as far as backup goes, our daughter, who's a programmer, she said there are two kinds of people in the world: people who back up their system and people who've never had their hard drive fail.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Yeah, yeah,
So you
yeah,
don't know you need it until you need it. But the
yeah.
other thing is that if you have a massive failure of some sort, you
Hmm.
spill your coffee in your computer and it
Yeah,
blows up, or whatever, it gets stolen off the train, and your insurance company finds out that you don't have a backup system,
yeah,
or what's called a business continuity plan in place,
right.
you might be denied insurance.
Yeah.
Like, your insurance might not pay you out.
Yep, that's right.
So,
You have to protect
like,
yourself. Yeah, that's right.
exactly,
That's awesome.
exactly.
Yeah, that's all really important. I'm glad we stumbled on that, because that's an important thing that you talk about, and I really appreciate that. So how can people learn more about you and your services if they want to work with you as their VA?
The best place is through my website,
Mhm.
productivelyorganized.com.
Okay.
I kind of, I don't have time for social media. I,
Yeah.
I'm on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with me, that would be the best place to connect with me.
Yeah.
It would be on LinkedIn, Jacki Hollywood Brown on LinkedIn. Uh,
Hmm.
but the link, if you go to Productively Organized, you can find my link to LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And, I don't think everybody needs to be on social media. I think that when you get to a place in your business where you have a community of people that you spend your time with, whether that's daily, monthly, quarterly, whatever it is, I think that, and you have people that you can reach out to, like we're talking about getting referrals and that type of thing. There's a lot of people I haven't seen in a long time who I don't need to talk to every day to pick up the phone and have a business conversation with them. So
Well, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And the other place
Mhm.
that I hang out is the Cava Facebook group,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
and of course the virtual circle.
Yep. Exactly. So that's awesome.
So
I'm so glad you're there. So is there anything else you want people to know about you and your business just before we go?
I think that's about everything.
That's so funny because
Just
you could talk
feel free
all
to
day about other people, but that
exactly.
was tell me something about you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a typical introvert answer.
It is. And so many of us are introverts that people don't believe it, but I totally am. And so yeah, it's I so appreciate you spending your time with us and your expertise. I'm really glad that we did this because I've been hoping we could do it for a little while now. And yeah, I just want to thank you for all your insight, all your expertise, and always thank you for working with me because I think that together we do really good things for you and for me. I'm very, very happy about that. So
Thank you very much, Tracy. It's always a pleasure to work with you.
that's awesome.